All right, everyone, how are we getting on? It's Tuesday morning. This is the morning briefing from the Celtic Way with Hamish, Tony, and Joe. Guys, how are you?
Good. 4 more sleeps, I think it is now. Yes, come on, bring it on. Can't beat it.
Yeah, same.
Just same.
Just same.
Sums it up.
Just same. Looking forward to the weekend. Back to business.
No, it's big games. Busy period coming up, everyone. So we're maybe going to chat a little bit about that today. There's a few news bits to talk about. Arne Engels, Luke McCowan met the media yesterday. Tony, I know you were across that. We have a couple of loan players, Matt Anderson. I'm just calling him Matt, by the way, because there's no way anyone with the name Matthew isn't called Matt. It's like, remember, you won't remember this, but when James Forrest first broke through, he was Jamie Forrest right at the start. And he was never going to be Jamie Forrest. So I'm going with Matt Anderson. I'm going to make it stick. Who's the other player that's gone out? Ben Summers. On loan as well, so we can maybe discuss that. I know we did get a comment in there right at the start. Gordon just reminding us, as if we needed reminding, today's the 39th anniversary of the sad and tragic passing of Jock Stein. And I think it's something we should definitely discuss. I can't believe it's 39 years, and I don't say that as someone who was around in 1985, but I do remember. I remember it would have been the 20th anniversary in 2005. I remember we played Aberdeen, and there was a real kind of a minute's applause, I think, before the match, and I can't believe that we're now looking at 40 years this time next year, Tony. It's remarkable.
Yeah, it's incredible, and Jock Stein was my father's idol, basically. He adored the man. Every Celtic supporter who was around during Jock Stein's time adored the man. And he put, as Gordon Coney said in the comments, he put Celtic on the football map, didn't he? The modern day Celtic owe it to Jock Stein and the boys for setting the highest of bars. That gold star on the crest signifies that you are a big club and a renowned and world-known football club. And I spoke to you off air about this, Hamish, and I put a piece up and I'll put it back in the comments section. That is a piece I did with former SFA Assistant Secretary Peter Donald. Peter Donald was there at Cardiff that night. He spoke to Jock Stein before the game, and Jock Stein gave him a throwaway line saying he hadn't been feeling too great and he thought nothing of it. And Peter Donald was there the moment it happened, but he couldn't get in the door because a security guard prevented him and blocked him. And he saw Souness standing at the door with two words that I said in the piece reverberated around the football world: he's gone. He said, and then if words paint a picture, Peter Donald said they flew back to Edinburgh Airport and everybody went away, and on the carousel was a sole bag, and it was Jock Stein's bag of possessions and what he took away with him on that trip. And Peter Donald had to pick that bag up and then drive from Edinburgh Airport to Jock Stein's wife's house. And he obviously comforted her. And he tells a story, and he told it on the Renfrew ferry one day when the Bells were the sponsor of the Scottish Football League, and they used to take us to the Manager and Player of the Month awards. And he told it, and everybody was in tears. And I vowed, or I hoped one day, that I would get him on record. And he did it for me 3 years ago. And I urge anybody to read that. And you can hear my voice and not shed tears. It's just, I don't know why or how he wanted to go on record, but I asked the question and he did. He went on record and spoke me through it. And if ever you want a poignant piece, it's the most poignant piece I've ever written in my journalistic career. My primary 3 and 4 teacher, Mrs. Woods, and I love her dearly, and she told me I was going to be a writer, told me it was my best ever. I leave other people to judge that, but it means a lot to me because it was my father's hero, and if you want to have a read at that, I urge you to do that, because it's the best piece, I think, on Jock Stein's death or sad passing that you'll ever read. To be honest, it's just from a man who was there. And it's worth the read, let's put it that way.
Yeah, definitely worth a read, especially in a day like today. Joe, I was looking there because I wasn't actually sure what age Jock Stein was when he died. He's only 62. You think of him as this. Well, I personally think of him as this real veteran of football. But if you do the maths, he wouldn't have been that old really in 1967 when we won the European Cup. Incredible manager, the things he achieved, and I guess sadly missed. I mean, he should have been around for decades after that.
I think the main, excuse me, obviously, when you speak about things like that, Tony, it really kind of crystallises the humanity of it without trying to sound overly profound about it. Do you know, like you think of Lisbon, you think of the Star on the Crest, you think of the big games. Even his passing, you think of the drama of where and how it happened. But the bag in the carousel is it's one part of a story that nobody really would think about, But yeah, I mean, it's a shocking age to be taken, isn't it? And it really underlines the significance of his achievements as a manager. I was born in '86, so I never got to see Stein live. Like any Celtic fan, I'm well acquainted with the greatest achievements. My father followed Celtic all his life. And could speak for hours about Jock Stein as well. And the way that I always try and contextualise it as a fan who lived through the 90s and then when Martin O'Neill came in, like how revered for my generation and generations around that time Martin O'Neill is and continues to be, having real success, turned the club around, European final, but didn't quite get that last step. To think how fans who were around for Stein, who've seen him coach and were around at Lisbon, and maybe for younger fans, they see Brendan Rodgers in the same light in terms of achievements last time and this time, and the next step is European football. I'm not sure, but how highly I rate Martin O'Neill to this day in my head. To think Stein to have been there, to have seen that, and yeah, what a legacy. Into 40 years next year, 39 years today is incredible, because again, I wasn't here in '85, but I think Jimmy Johnson passing in 2006, Tommy Burns in 2008, those big characters that have left in my lifetime, and all of a sudden that's so far gone, and terrifying that time goes so quickly, but it's brilliant. And again, without over romanticising, it speaks to a lot of what makes Celtic, that you have these memories and these legacies that last so long, and that's the way that you want it to be, isn't it?
I think the 4 words that Bill Shankly said to him in the dressing room after Lisbon just sums it all up. John, you're immortal now. Mm-hmm. And that's why we're still, and Celtic supporters will continue to talk about him in history forever and ever and ever, because he achieved something that no other Celtic team has. They were the first British club, Scottish club to do it, and being the first, just he was the man that was in charge of that group of boys who were destined to become Lisbon Lions. And I don't think you can sum it up any better than what Shankly said. And using his real name, John, you're immortal now. I mean, it's those words are just absolutely spectacular. Yeah, profound, and what a legacy that is.
Yeah, 39 years ago today, Jock Stein passed away, and he leaves all the incredible memories. And as Joe said, we still talk about them and will talk about them for generations to come. Right, there's a few other things we do want to discuss today. It feels almost a bit strange moving on from Jock Stein to the players of today, but I wonder what we would make of Celtic today and the way we play football, and what would he make of Brendan Rodgers and people, and Callum McGregor and people like that. You'd love to know, wouldn't you? Arne Engels, he is going to meet the media today. Tony, is that the chat? We had Luke McCowan.
Yes, he's going to meet the media, I think 3 o'clock this afternoon. Joe, Luke McCowan had that honour yesterday, and Luke McCowan's been brilliant for him. He just really is the Celtic supporter who's won the lottery. He's loving life, and fair play to him. He's done the hard yards. You know, he keeps getting asked when he was playing at Ayr United, did you think his dream would come true? And he was just sort of saying, well, you've got to hope. You know, you've got to have belief in your ability. And, you know, he's here now and he's talking about how his life's changed and, you know, he can't fill up to McDonald's anymore and all the stuff to tell kids, yes, I'm getting a fruit bag and all that kind of stuff. And that was just so irreverent and funny. And he was saying there was kids in his mum and dad's garden asking for autographs and stuff. And he says it's all very nice. He says, but at some point they'll need to stop coming into the garden. He just says it's a learning curve for his family as well, and how he grew up idolising that Sutton Larson Hartson team, and he still takes penalties like Alan Thompson. That CD, he idolised Alan Thompson. He still takes penalties the same way as him, and you know, he was just so open. He just a guy living his best life and so happy to be part of that dressing room, saying that the manager wants him to bring the noise as well. You know, he's migrating towards Callum McGregor because he's everything that, you know, Celtic players should. I mean, he was just he answered everything with a real confidence. I know he's no young; he's 26, but he was just so happy, and you know, his life has been flipped upside down, but in a good way and in the best way possible. And he was asked about the thought of playing in the Champions League, and he says, "Listen," he says, "I'm a kind of guy who played in the Premier Sports Cup." He says, "That's the difference." He says, "I always played in the Premier, the early rounds of the Premier Sports Cup." He says, telling me that, you know, in the next couple of weeks I could play in the Champions League. He says that's all about surreal for me. So, real old head, you know, on a kind of young man's shoulders and feet in the ground stuff. But he ain't there to make up numbers. He ain't there to be a squad player. He's coming in to prove his worth. And the people I've spoken to, I spoke to Dave Mackay, who was his former assistant. He said, "Listen, this guy's going to surprise you. You know, his ambition just now is to get as many minutes in the park as he can." I guess that's fair enough. He doesn't expect to walk straight into the team, but Dave Mackay said to me, "This guy, he'll be in the team." He's like, "Watch him. He'll flourish and he'll." And I just love all that, and I think the young boy thinks that himself as well. I think he's thinking, like, give me time to bed in, but I'm here for a reason, and the reason is I'm a very good player. And you can't get enough people your team.
Yeah, I mean, I spoke to one of his former managers, and he said that he's got like a hell of a personality, and that really kind of excites me as well, because I think to play for a club like Celtic, to sign for Celtic from Dundee, the worry you would have is, you know, can he handle the step up? And you get the impression from his personality that he's not kind of, how do I word this? He's not going to be burdened by that step up to a club the size of Celtic. Joe, it feels like he's just absolutely loving it, and he's going to realise his dream. And we have so many players at the moment, and the majority of them, as Rodgers has said over the summer, the majority of them, their final destination isn't Celtic. I think, look, McCown, we are the biggest club he's going to play for in his career. This is these next few years, however long he's with us, is going to be the years he looks back, the peak years of his career. And we've got him for the peak years of his career. And I think he might surprise a lot of people as well, and be quite a good player for us.
Yeah, and I think from everything we've seen so far, everything yesterday, everything when he was coming in, all that really grounded, level-headed stuff, it really bodes well. At 26, he's not, like you said, Tony, he's not fresh-faced, he's not young, but equally, if he was 22 coming in the door, and even if Celtic was going to be the biggest club that he'd play for at 22, there is always that, will his head be turned elsewhere kind of thing. So you're thinking that at this age, with that level of maturity that it seems to be shown, then as you say, Hamish, we'll all be getting the best out of him. And the piece that Tony, the interview that Tony did with Dave Mackay, there was comparisons between Barry Robson and Paul Hartley as players that came into the Celtic fold later in their career, something that they'd always wanted to do. And certainly there was no question, you know, in the European games, maybe not the most glamorous team, Gordon Strachan Celtic team that we've ever seen, but the most successful in Europe, if getting to that next stage, 2 years on the trot. You know, we spoke about well, I certainly spoke with Martin O'Neill earlier in the conversation, did better in the Champions League than Martin O'Neill did, Gordon Strachan, despite maybe not being the most glamorous team, with players like Barry Robson and Paul Hartley underlining everything he did in the middle of the pitch. So different generation, different era, different kind of player, but principally similar, I think. One of those guys that'll go in, roll up his sleeves and, yeah, listen, if there's any surprises to be had there, then I'm absolutely all for it. And it's great to see, I always say I don't like to buy into the whole idea of the player gets it, but equally when you see it happening, when you see it with a Celtic fan, it is really nice to see as well. So wish him all the best, and I hope that he is one of the kind of standouts come the end of the season and surprises, especially with these European fixtures ahead.
Yeah, he's going to have a role to play, isn't he? Because we're going to have these domestic matches where he'll probably be asked to come in. I don't think he's going to be starting many Champions League games, if I'm honest. He might surprise us, and I'm happy for him to do that. But I think he's going to have a big part to play in the weekend, making sure that he can be that big player for us. Maybe when the legs are a little bit tired in midfield. Frank asking who's the last player we signed for Dundee. Scott Bain was from Dundee. Jack Hendry was from Dundee. I don't know if you guys can think of any other recent-ish players from Dundee.
Jack Hendry would have been mine because Scott Bain technically went to Hibs, didn't he? Before then coming to us. He hadn't actually signed.
He went on loan to Hibs.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Jack Hendry for me, I think. Is that the last one?
Well, but you won't it?
Yeah.
He should do well. Hey, Arne Engels today, Tony, what are we expecting to hear from him? It'd be good to actually hear from him because I feel like it's kind of the one who we haven't really heard from yet.
Yeah, but he did the social media clip went viral, didn't it? As he was walking around the stadium after the Rangers game and he shouts "amazing" into the camera, and I don't think they're aware of it, but that ingratiates yourself to supporters right away, and he's clearly saying what he feels, and he's thinking, wow, this is a guy that came from the Bundesliga. In the Bundesliga, you play in front of a lot of full house stadiums there, so I'm sure he's well aware of playing in front of big crowds, but I don't imagine Augsburg, average gate was anything like Celtic's, clearly. So, and I want to know how he felt making his debut, because he looked very comfortable, didn't he?
Yeah.
He didn't do anything out of the ordinary, but he pulled a football down and he spread it about, and you thought, right, okay, you look pretty elegant, you look pretty classy, you look a bit silky, and can't wait to see more of you. And I think that's the great impression that he left. The Celtic supporters were like, you'll do for me. And what I liked about him was what you heard very early when Celtic's interest was first mooted is that he wanted to come. And that was leaked very early, that Engels was desperate to come to Celtic. And I think this is one of those transfers where Celtic have got him at the optimum moment. What is he, 2021? And you get them at that moment, and then they play Champions League, and then they enhance their reputations. But Engels is that kind of, he's switched on enough to say, right, I'm going to go to a good club where I play in front of a lot of people, and if I do the business, then whatever happens in my career trajectory, it's only going up the way. Probably looked at Matt O'Reilly and thought, like a bit of that, and Brendan Rodgers was desperate to get him in. So I would imagine he'd been very involved in the process of signing the player. So he's had conversations with the player, and the player's decided that's my next port of call. And lots of people saying, but if he's that good, why didn't Bundesliga sides come in from and all that? I don't care. I'm glad they didn't come in from. And I think he's a player who won't be fazed by the record transfer fee. I think he just wants to play football for Celtic and be at a good club and play in the Champions League and show everybody what he's about. And if he thinks that Rangers game was amazing, he ain't seen nothing yet, has he? Let's be honest.
Yeah, I can't wait to see him play. I mean, he's playing for Belgium. He came on as a sub for them, didn't he?
Yeah.
I noticed Kevin De Bruyne was praising him. Not a bad player to be praising your fellow midfielder. I believe it's some sort of strange rule where his youth appearances and some yellow cards he picked up at that level have ruled him out of the second Belgium game. So I think he's already back at at Lennox. And I guess that's not bad news for us, Joe, but it'd be interesting to hear from him today.
Yeah, absolutely. When I'd heard obviously missed the talking into the camera stuff and caught up with that after the Rangers game the other week, and I'd misread it. I thought it kind of, when I just read it on social media, I thought it was like, the time when when Rangers had beaten Celtic and he grabbed the camera, and I thought, oh God, is this boy setting himself up?
You thought Engels had done that?
Aye, I thought it was something similar.
Much.
I know, and I thought, oh my goodness, and then I saw it and I was like, oh, it's, he's just really kind of overawed. I was obviously worried that the boys sent himself off on the wrong foot, but was pleased when it wasn't the case. But no, really looking forward to seeing him. Got to assume that he starts Champions League. He's the big signing, isn't he? He's the marquee. He's coming in with who's
he come in for then? That's the question I would ask you. If you say that, you've got to give me someone dropping out.
Yeah, that's a good. I'm not sure. That begs the question of, is the midfield McGregor, Bernardo, Engels? Does Hatate come out there? Does Hatate the player that shines in the Champions League? Listen, what a problem to have. Not the only Celtic fan saying that at the moment. I think it depends on how things are going, and I mean that over the course of the kind of broader picture. How are we looking injury-wise, squad fitness-wise, as we get deeper into these games? Excuse me. How are we doing in the Champions League? How many points have we accrued? Are we looking like that final push? December's always busy domestically. We have another Champions League game against Aston Villa in January. I think it could be I don't know. I don't have an answer to that. I think it could be a massive year in the Champions League for Hatate, but equally, Hatate's one of those players that when he turns it on, even in the games where Celtic have been well defeated in recent years, he's been brilliant. But equally gives the ball away a little bit in possession, and I know the manager's spoken a lot about that. The creative players bringing unnecessary pressure onto the back line and the defensive third. So I have spoken there for about 2 minutes and not really given you an answer. But what a problem to have.
It's a great problem to have, and I'm so excited about that midfield. Dennis is asking us about Austin Trusty as well. So if we just answer that and answer the same question for all four of our end of window signings. So Vai, Trusty, McCowan, Engels. How many of them, Tony, will be in the starting lineup on Saturday?
I don't think any of them will start, I've got to be honest. I think they'll go with the tried and tested, but I think they'll all get game time with the Champions League in mind. He's got a plan for the Champions League, brought these guys in with the Champions League in mind, I think. So you'll have to give them game time before the Hearts game. But he lays great stock in the guys that are there already, doesn't he? He's mentioned that a few times, and the guys that have got him to this point. So I think he'll start with the same team that defeated Rangers, but he'll give those guys like at least half an hour with Slovan Bratislava around the corner. I think he wants to play a certain way in Europe, and so I think you'll see all of them at some point on Saturday. I've got is the honest answer, and I think they'll all get a good half an hour, maybe more, in some certain cases, to see what they're really about.
Because we've not had any midweek games yet this season, I don't think. It's all just been weekend to weekend. So I think from Saturday's game onwards, you might see a bit of difference. I mean, I guess it's slightly different because it's our first game back after 2 weeks off for a lot of the squad. But you wonder if already, could Engels start the game on Saturday but potentially not start on Tuesday night? Like, I think Rodgers is probably going to prioritise, and I'm talking slightly here, but he's probably going to prioritise the Slovan Bratislava game over Hearts. I know obviously every game is a huge game, but if he is looking to maybe keep players fresh for that Bratislava game, could you maybe see a couple of players dropping out of the team on Saturday? I know Saturday's a big game as well, by the way. It's Hearts.
Yeah. It's such a tough one because I think that personally that having Bratislava first is great for Celtic, especially at home. Gives you the best chance to get off the mark, doesn't it? To get 3 points to really push it.
Huge game.
It's massive. But equally with that comes an element of pressure that we're certainly not used to supporters. Whether or not you put any stock in phasing the manager or the players is a different issue, because they want to focus game to game and keep their concentration on what needs to be done. But to go in to be lining up a Champions League home game that you almost expected to win, not expect is maybe too strong, you know what I mean? And then do you having the experience, having the expectation to come in and hit the ground running. That was the whole point of pushing the boat out financially for him. He should be able to do that. But Celtic have started the season really well with the players that the Greg Taylors, the Liam Scales, the ones that were considered, even Bernardo, like maybe they would make way for these new faces. They've started brilliantly, and if they continue that on Saturday, again, it's a brilliant problem to have, but I'm not sure how quickly we'll see the new faces. I think probably more a substitute appearance on Saturday, and then it's anyone's guess getting into that
Falkirk game maybe. Could be the Falkirk game we see them, because it's Saturday afternoon and then Wednesday night, so there is a good chunk of time between the matches. So I'm kind of going back on what I just said, but it's going to be fascinating to see how quickly Brendan Rodgers brings those four players we mentioned into the fray. Because the argument is you don't really need to do it at this stage. You can kind of take your time with a lot of them because the team is playing so well. Any final thoughts on that, Tony?
I think Joe's reluctant to say that expectation to win that match. So let's just see, you're fully expecting Celtic to be ferociously competitive against Slovan Bratislava, fiercely competitive at that. You caveat that with the fact that the European record hasn't been great at all, but it is a monumental opportunity to get your Champions League phase campaign off to a flyer, playing Slovan Bratislava. But managers always big on respecting opponents. You have to respect them regardless of what you think about Slovak football. They're the Slovak champions, and Hamish made a great point yesterday that they're all champions in that group, aren't they, of the league? Well,
and you've got to assume that teams are looking at Celtic with Celtic's record in recent years, thinking the same. It's
a great opening game for them. They'll be looking at that opening game based on our recent record, going, what a good chance that is for us to get a win.
100%.
Yeah.
But I think we are big favourites, guys. Like I don't think we should be shy about saying that, just because maybe we don't want to seem like we're being too cocky. Celtic are big favourites to beat Slovan Bratislava at home. We have to be.
Yeah.
And I think as well, Hamish, that the manager will be. I know you only one game at a time and all that, but the manager will be seriously thinking about what his team for that fixture too, assuming everybody comes through the Hearts game unscathed. But you'll have one eye on that too. They'll never ever admit that. But in the context of the season, it's a huge game for Celtic, the one against Slovan Bratislava. It really is. It's a huge spell coming up for Celtic, which can shape up your season in terms of where you want to be and where you want to go in that progression on that stage.
What a few months we could have if we just kind of win that opening game. I just feel like that would just settle us. Listen, Saturday's a huge game as well. It's Hearts at Celtic Park. It's a big one, and I can't wait for it. Right, just before we go, I wanted to touch on Anderson and Summers moving on loan. Admira Wacker, the Austrian team, we've got this kind of relationship with. Anderson and Oluwayemi, was it last year?
Mm-hmm.
We're out on loan at them. Anderson did really well. I think he won one of their awards, didn't he? Was it their Young Player of the Year or Player of the Year?
One of those.
Fabulous. So he's gone back out there, and Ben Summers as well, who we've kind of not heard about for a wee while, but was highly rated maybe 18 months ago, Joe.
Yeah, his name's kind of been about for a little while in the B team. Even get back to, he was definitely around the scene even when I was in club media, and I left the club in 2021. So a name that's certainly under the surface. Yeah, it's the flip side of a lot of the conversation recently has been dominated by the players that have chosen to part ways with the club entirely, hasn't it? The boys that have moved down south, and then I've noticed some stories coming back out about the likes of Liam Morrison and Ben Doak, and the players that have left for pastures now, the bigger clubs, and then have maybe struggled and appeared to have dropped down a level. But yeah, it's credit to the guys that are willing to get stuck in. We seem to have this kind of informal relationship there as well, which, if it's benefiting both sides, then I'm all for it. But yeah, all the best to them, and hopefully they can get the experience that they need, and hopefully we're having different conversations when their time comes, and it's not a case of another one that slipped through the cracks. And yeah, I wish them all the best, I suppose.
It makes sense for Anderson to go back there, I guess, after last season when he did so well. And he's someone I've got quite high hopes for, I think, Tony.
Well, I think he showed up really well in pre-season, didn't he? But I think the manager just needs him to get some more experience, doesn't he? And I think there's logic to sending him back to Admiral where he won a Player of the Year and he's playing competitive football. Because I think once he comes back from his second stint, I think he could be ready to mount a challenge to, come into that first team and be around the first team squad and get valuable game minutes. And I'm sure that's what the manager says. Maybe just not ready just now, but praised him for his pre-season efforts and said, right, I see something in you that another season on loan with this club playing competitive football will serve you well, and then you'll come back and we'll talk and see where your career's going. But I think he's probably saying to Anderson, I'm challenging you to come back and give me decision to make on you to start including you in this first team. I want you to be first team ready. And I'm like you, I liked what I saw of Anderson in pre-season, so we'll see what happens. Like Joe, I wish them both all the best. I hope Ben Summers can take a leaf out of Anderson's book and watch him closely, and he can help guide through the process the same way he experienced last season.
Yeah, it's one to keep an eye on, certainly. Anything else, guys? Anything else on your mind for today?
I think so. His last, what day we now? Tuesday. Last international fixtures tonight, and then we're fully focused on.
Are we out of the woods yet? Have we got any players out to play?
Japan play tonight, don't they?
Oh, don't tell me that.
Or they play today. Yeah, I'm not sure the time difference, but
and we're still feeling pretty positive about Alistair Johnston, aren't we? After the kind of bulletin that he was taken off as a precaution, and Alistair Johnston sort of was part of that decision because he didn't want to risk anything. So I think he should be fine for Saturday. I think that was sensible what they did with Alistair Johnston. So I'm happy about that.
Yeah, Japan are on at 2 a.m. here, so I think that's 5 o'clock, 5 p.m. your time. McLaughlin's saying, so we can keep an eye on that. Hopefully, I don't think either of the guys will probably start. They didn't in the last game, did they? Maida came on and scored, so we'll keep an eye on it. But hopefully, all is good, and then we can move onwards to Hearts on Saturday. Do you get anything else, Tony?
No, I like Joe said there, Tuesday, you're thinking, another few days. The Hearts game can't come quick enough for all of us, and every Celtic supporter. I think we're just feeling really confident about this squad of players and manager at the minute. So, and you just want to see the games, and you want to see what the manager does in terms of the team selection. Saying that's why he gets paid the big money, isn't it, to make those kind of decisions? But it's just great to be in that position. Many times have we spoken at a Celtic team are not in that position, and they don't have options. They don't have strength and depth, so I'm very pleased at that, and you just look forward to it. And Hearts as well. We all like beating Hearts, don't we? It's always a good.
You've seen Brendan Rodgers' teams. I know that last year was different when things were still kind of in transition, but when Brendan Rodgers' most successful seasons and most entertaining football at Celtic, the first season and the second season. That stretch, that push towards December, and then when December is chaotic, when the players don't have that much time to think about it. Squad rotation comes in, but there's match, recovery, prep, match, and it's Wednesday, Saturday, Thursday, Sunday, whatever. Like, we've seen some of the best football that Celtic played, especially in that first year in that Invincible season. So to think that, this might not age well, could be looking in a couple of months' time and the backside's falling out of it. It doesn't seem like it's going to end up that way this year, but to be playing so well with, I know that you've got that rest that week, but to be playing so well just now, once things go under the caution, if Brendan Rodgers can recapture that kind of form, it could be you said this at the start of the conversation, Hamish, it could be a really exciting few months.
You still feel that they've not hit stride yet, do you?
Yeah, that's it.
I think we've not seen a 90-minute performance. We've not seen 90 minutes, have we?
Celtic came into their own very late last season, didn't they? And the manager told you this is where they wake up. I think he said, in fact, it was a 3-each game at Ibrox. He said, this is Celtic come alive. And they came alive, and they've came alive since. And it's been a gradual process. And I think he's still not alive enough for Brendan Rodgers to say, right, we're alive, as alive can be. But it's certainly coming to the boil, and he's liking what he's seeing. So you are scratching the surface of the potential of this team. Don't want to say too much, as Joe says, because it could all go pear-shaped and south pretty quickly. But you're excited by it, and you're excited by what this group of players and managers can achieve and produce.
Yeah, and we can't wait for the games to come up. There's going to be so many of them to look forward to. Right, okay, that'll do us for today, everyone. Thanks again for all of you who have tuned in, commented, not commented, etc. Thanks, guys, once again for chatting away to me, and we'll return tomorrow to do it all again.